There are moments in life when solitude feels heavy, when silence feels like punishment, and when being misunderstood feels like a wound that never heals. She walked through these seasons. She had no friends, not because she did not know how to love, but because the world could not recognize her spirit. They called her weak, not realizing God was shaping her in hidden places. Today, we tell the story of a woman who rose, not by applause, not by support, not by validation, but by God's quiet, powerful, and mysterious hand. She walked alone through hallways, through streets, and through seasons where silence felt heavier than the loudest crowd. People passed by her like shadows with no names, like faces without hearts. She seemed invisible, but invisibility is sometimes God's strategy, not punishment. To those watching, she looked forgotten. To heaven, she was protected, chosen, hidden with purpose. Her phone rarely rang, notifications were silent. No one checked on her, no one asked how she felt, and no one noticed when she disappeared for days. While others posted pictures with friends and celebrated empty connections, she sat with a heart full of questions. Was she enough? Was she lovable? Did she matter? And although loneliness squeezed her soul, somehow she always woke up with just enough strength to face another day. That strength wasn't hers. It was God's breath holding her up. She wiped tears quietly at night, pressing her pillow to silence the sounds of her pain. She learned to pray in whispers because she didn't want the world to hear her battling. She didn't want pity, she wanted peace. She didn't want attention, she wanted meaning. And slowly, without realizing it, her quiet tears watered the garden of her future strength. Her suffering was not wasted. Every tear was a seed. People left. People judged. Some even laughed behind her back. They saw weakness. God saw a masterpiece in progress. She didn't need an audience. She had the attention of heaven. She was never truly alone. In her room, in her silence, in her deepest moments of isolation, God sat with her, whispering, "Hold on, I am building you." She thought she was abandoned, but in reality, she was being prepared for a destination only few are chosen to reach. They whispered her name like it was something small, something unworthy. They misunderstood her silence and labeled her spirit incorrectly. They thought she was weak because she didn't fight back, because she didn't shout, because she didn't clap back with anger. But sometimes the quietest souls are carrying the loudest callings. Sometimes the ones who say nothing are the ones who know God speaks in stillness. People judged her from the outside, but they never took time to see the battles she fought internally. They never saw how many nights she cried herself into prayer. They never saw how many times she forgave silently, how many times she broke but refused to harden her heart. The world often mocks softness, not understanding that gentle hearts are God's strongest soldiers. They didn't know she chose silence not because she lacked a voice, but because she trusted God's voice more than hers. She could have argued. She could have defended herself. She could have shouted her truth. But she chose dignity. She chose faith over explanation. She chose to put her heartbreak into God's hands rather than fight battles she was never meant to fight. And while they laughed, heaven recorded every tear, every wound, every moment she walked away instead of retaliating. They thought their words had power. They thought rejection had defeated her. But God uses misunderstanding as camouflage. He hides his chosen ones in plain sight, so enemies never understand what he is building. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was a shield. It was a spiritual armor. Real strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply refuses to break. What they mocked today, they would admire tomorrow. Because when God reveals what he has prepared for her, Every voice that doubted will fall silent. Rejection became a familiar visitor, knocking on her heart when she least expected it. It came quietly sometimes, wrapped in silence, in unanswered messages, in sudden distance from those she once trusted. Other times it arrived loudly, in harsh words, in cold stares, in abrupt departures that left her breathless. Each rejection felt like a storm she had to walk through alone. Yet with every storm, she learned how to stand stronger. People she supported disappeared when she needed a simple prayer. Those she comforted had no comfort to offer in return. Those she lifted up could not even look back when she stumbled. It hurt deeply, not because she needed them to validate her worth, but because she believed love, loyalty, and kindness were mutual seeds that grew together. Instead, she discovered some people only walk with you as long as your light benefits them. When the road becomes dark, they vanish. Yet every goodbye, though painful, was guided by a divine hand. God was not allowing people to leave her life. He was removing what could not go where she was going. She didn't lose friendships. She lost illusions. She didn't lose love. She lost disguised betrayal. God knew the future they could not see, and rejection was his way of making room for those who were truly meant to walk beside her. She learned something sacred. Sometimes rejection is protection, and silence from people is a signal from God that your journey requires elevation, not companionship. And little by little, she stopped begging for acceptance. She stopped chasing hearts that did not value hers. She realized the world's rejection was God's redirection toward purpose, toward healing, toward a future built on truth. What once felt like abandonment now felt like liberation. She didn't fall apart. She rose quietly, stronger, and far more free. Pain visited her often, not as a punishment, but as a sculptor shaping her soul. She felt it in her chest like a weight, in her mind like a storm, in her bones like winter refusing to end. Yet she did not crumble. Pain became her silent companion, the force that cracked open her heart so God could pour himself inside. Through every heartbreak, she learned the sacred language of surrender. There were nights she questioned her purpose, asking why her heart had to break to learn how to love herself. There were mornings she woke up tired of being strong, tired of pretending everything was fine, tired of carrying battles nobody knew she fought. But every time she wanted to quit, grace touched her. God reminded her, gold is refined by fire, diamonds are shaped by pressure, warriors are trained in battle. She wasn't being destroyed, she was being refined. Pain stripped away pride, illusion, fear, and people who didn't belong in her story. It forced her to face herself, to meet the woman she truly was beneath doubt, beneath insecurity, beneath the expectations of others. She learned how to breathe again, not through the applause of the world, but through the whisper of God saying, I am with you. I am building you. This hurt is not the end. It is the beginning. And little by little, pain became power. Wounds became wisdom. Tears became prayers. Every crack in her spirit allowed more light in. She didn't escape pain. She transformed through it. The woman who once cried because she felt broken now stands strong because every piece of her was rebuilt with faith. God was not punishing her. He was preparing her to become the woman she never knew she could be. A woman carved by heaven, strengthened through struggle, crowned in silence. God's greatest work often happens in silence, away from applause, away from eyes, away from noise. While she wondered if heaven heard her, heaven was setting foundations under her feet.
Growth doesn't shout, it whispers. Destiny doesn't always arrive with trumpets. Sometimes it comes wrapped in stillness, patience, and invisible progress. She didn't feel strong yet, but strength was rising within her, quietly, like morning light slowly breaking through mountains. In her quiet days, she learned discipline. In her quiet nights, she learned obedience. Silence became her teacher, not an enemy. She started reading more, praying more, thinking deeper. She listened to her soul and realized the world had been too loud for too long. God was detoxing her spirit. He was removing confusion, one layer at a time. He was teaching her to recognize His voice above all others. What felt like emptiness was actually spiritual training. There were days she begged for movement, not realizing movement was happening inside her spirit, not around her. Sometimes God pauses your life to prepare your nature. He builds character before He gives platforms. He builds humility before He gives influence. What others saw as stagnation was actually sacred development. Purpose was forming in the shadows, and she had no idea how beautiful her future looked from heaven's perspective. She stopped rushing. She stopped comparing. She stopped envying anyone else's pace. She understood divine timing. Not early, not late, always perfect. God wasn't ignoring her. He was positioning her. And when God is positioning you, silence is not punishment. Silence is protection. Silence is preparation. Silence is where warriors are formed, prophets are awakened, and destiny begins. She didn't know it yet, but God was about to turn her quiet season into her greatest testimony. Then, one day without warning, something shifted inside her spirit. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was a holy awakening, a quiet courage rising like fire inside her bones. She looked in the mirror and didn't see the same fragile girl anymore. She saw someone who survived storms that were meant to break her. Someone who walked through loneliness and came out wiser. Someone who cried and still got up. That was strength. Not the loud kind, but the sacred kind only God can give. Confidence didn't come suddenly. It flowed gently, like water filling an empty cup. She started believing in herself again. She didn't need praise to feel worthy anymore. She didn't need validation to feel valuable. What she needed was already inside her: peace, purpose, identity, strength. She realized the girl who once begged for acceptance now stood anchored in God's love. She was no longer asking, "Am I enough?" She knew she was, because God doesn't make mistakes. People began to notice a different energy around her, not arrogance, but assurance, not pride, but presence, not ego, but authority. A glow that didn't come from attention, but from healing. They wondered how she got stronger. They forgot who held her through the silent nights. Strength built in the dark always shines the brightest when God says, "It's time." They thought she changed suddenly, but heaven knew it was a slow, sacred build. And now when she speaks, her words have weight. When she prays, mountains tremble. When she stands, she carries purpose. She is not the girl they doubted. She is the woman God developed. Quiet strength is dangerous to the enemy because it cannot be taken, shaken, or broken. She no longer fears the future. She's equipped for it. Strength didn't arrive. It finally revealed itself. Purpose doesn't reveal itself in the middle of applause. It arrives in the middle of silence, in the quiet spaces where the world thinks nothing is happening. One morning she woke up and felt something different in her spirit. The heaviness was gone, the confusion lifted, and her steps felt guided, not lost. She didn't suddenly have all the answers, but she had clarity, and clarity is a gift only God can give after seasons of waiting. What seemed like chaos now looked like preparation. Everything made sense: the pruning, the separation, the silence, the tears. Nothing was wasted. She discovered talents she never noticed before, as if God unlocked rooms in her soul that had been sealed for years. Ideas flowed, vision sharpened. She started dreaming again, not small dreams, but bold, heaven-sized dreams. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was becoming a vessel, becoming a testimony, becoming the kind of woman who walks with purpose and understands her power comes not from the world, but from God's calling on her life. Purpose felt like oxygen after years of drowning in doubt. She moved differently, slower but stronger, quieter but more intentional. She didn't chase opportunities, they began to find her. She didn't force connections, God started sending aligned souls. She didn't need to prove anything, she only needed to be. She stopped worrying about who didn't clap for her, who didn't believe in her, who didn't understand her. When you rise with purpose, validation becomes irrelevant. Purpose gives you sight beyond the present, courage beyond fear, and strength beyond circumstances.
When the world finally began to notice what heaven saw long ago, they looked for the old version of her, but she was gone, transformed, elevated, awakened. The same silence that once felt like punishment now felt like sacred alignment. She stepped into destiny not with noise, but with grace. She didn't arrive loudly, she arrived ready. And when God sends purpose, the world cannot stop it. They may not understand her journey, but they will witness her becoming. When she rose, they remembered her name. People who overlooked her suddenly grew curious. Those who laughed quietly now watched silently. There is a holy irony in destiny. Sometimes God allows witnesses not to break you, but to honor your becoming. They used to call her weak. They used to doubt her voice. They used to say she would never become anything extraordinary. But God loves to flip scripts. He loves to turn private suffering into public testimony, not for pride, but for glory. They saw her strength now, a strength that didn't need a stage to be real. They saw her peace, her glow, her confidence, and they whispered among themselves, "How did she change like that?" But the truth is, she didn't change suddenly. They just didn't see her transformation. They didn't see the night she prayed when she could have broken. They didn't see the tears that watered her faith. They didn't see angels attending her when she felt most alone. People judge results, God measures the process. She didn't hold grudges, she didn't seek revenge, she didn't return their bitterness. Instead, she smiled. Not a smile of pride, but of revelation. She finally understood those who mocked her were never enemies, they were mirrors reflecting the limits of their own hearts. Their disbelief wasn't about her worth, it was about their lack of vision. And now, seeing her shining, they silently wished they treated her better. But healing doesn't look back, it only moves forward. She didn't rise to prove them wrong, she rose because she was destined to. Their opinions became background noise, powerless and irrelevant. Her success wasn't loud or flashy, it was calm and holy. God didn't elevate her as revenge, He elevated her as proof that silence is not weakness and isolation is not absence. The woman they once underestimated is the woman God now uses as evidence. Those who walk alone with God are never truly alone, and they never stay unnoticed forever. Her strength was no longer fragile or borrowed, it was divine. rooted deep like mountains planted by God Himself. She didn't wake up afraid anymore. She didn't question her worth. She didn't measure herself through the eyes of others. And she didn't tremble at the thought of walking alone. Strength had settled inside her like a quiet sun rising within the chest, warm, steady, undeniable. She did not shout to prove it. She simply lived it. She prayed with authority now, not desperation. Her prayers were not cries for rescue, they were declarations of faith. She didn't ask, "God, why is this happening to me?" anymore. She said, "God, walk with me through it." That is when she realized real strength is not the absence of storms, but the ability to stand in the middle of them and still whisper, "It is well." Every step she took carried heaven's echo. Every breath she breathed carried God's grace. She became gentle and powerful at the same time. She learned that softness is not weakness, but strategy. The strongest waters carve the deepest valleys not by force, but by patience. She walked with humility, not pride. She forgave quickly because her heart was too expensive to rent out to anger. She loved deeply, not foolishly, because pain had taught her discernment. Her spirit glowed, not from success, but from surrender. And people saw it. They felt something different around her. Peace they couldn't explain. Wisdom they couldn't ignore. Courage they couldn't deny. She didn't need to convince anyone of who she was. Her spirit spoke louder than any words could. She understood, finally, God didn't only give her strength, He made her strength. And when God becomes your foundation, nothing and no one can move you. Victory did not enter her life with noise. It arrived like dawn, gentle yet unstoppable, painting the sky with quiet beauty. There were no crowds cheering, no stage, no cameras, but peace sat on her shoulders like a crown, and purpose filled her footsteps like music only angels could hear. She didn't need to tell her story. Her life became the testimony. Every silent night, every lonely tear, every whispered prayer had bloomed into a garden of grace around her soul. She didn't rise to embarrass the ones who doubted her. She rose to glorify the one who held her. God didn't lift her loudly so people could say, "Look at her." He lifted her softly so the world would say, "Look at God." Her life became proof that what looks like silence is sometimes simply preparation. What looks like delay is strategic timing. What looks like weakness is hidden power waiting for its appointed hour. Now, when she looks back, she does not curse the loneliness. She honors it, because lonely seasons taught her who she was. Pain taught her who God was. Silence taught her who she didn't need. Rejection taught her who was truly with her. And now she knows this truth with every fiber of her being. God never abandoned her. He built her in secret so He could reveal her in strength. She walked out of that quiet season with a new heart, a purified soul, and a calling no human could take away. She did not just survive, she transformed. She did not just endure, she evolved. She did not just change, she became. And her life whispered a message to anyone walking the road she once walked. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. You are not weak. You are being prepared. Silence is not punishment. It is God's hand shaping your destiny. And when God is finished, the world will not recognize the person who once cried in the dark, but heaven already knows your name.